Hey there, Dr. Jason, PhD in natural medicine, coming at you. Hope you're doing well. Today I want to talk to you about EMF. I don't know if you've heard of it, hopefully by now, at least maybe a little bit. I'm going to give you some more basic overview in a two-part video series here to help you understand it, because it can be a little bit mysterious, a little bit overwhelming. Some people scary, some people, what should I be worried about? And I'd like you to be a little bit more informed and understand where you come down on the topic. All right, so let's get started. So basic overview, almost all forms of energy that we interact with is EMF, or electromagnetic frequency. Some people call it electromagnetic field. And that's basically the transfer of energy. It's a term called radiation, okay? So it can be a little scary because if you're thinking radiation like, like a nuclear power plant, that is certainly one form of it, but most of us are not going to come in contact with that, okay? So when we say radiation, we're talking about, mostly talking about, the everyday, day-to-day radiation, like even if you turn on your stove to heat up a pan, that's radiation, believe it or not. That's the gas being burned off and putting the energy into the whatever you're cooking on the stove, right? Form of radiation there. So don't be too scared off by that at first, but just understand what's going on. So some of these sources, though, of it, literally just sunlight, so humans have been dealing with EMF since the beginning of time, right? Sunlight, and it's going to have visible light, ultraviolet, infrared. It's going to have radio waves, X-rays, gamma rays. Basically, the entire spectrum of energy, electromagnetic energy, comes from the sun. And so obviously we're exposed to that already. Even if you aren't even around anything man-made, you're exposed to it. The deal is the man-made stuff, that's where we might have a little bit of an issue. And so again, am I knocking all technology and advance in society? Nope. But remember, with any advanced technology, it comes usually a cost. There's always pros and cons. There's a benefit and then there's a cost. So we have to be aware of that balance and understand, again, where you come down on which side of the fence or where your balance is at there. So some of the man-made versions that we get, or places we get too much EMF from sometimes, is going to be stray voltage, or basically any circuit in your house or business is going to have a little bit of extra voltage that literally just comes off the circuit. You don't really feel it like electric shock, but again, that's EMF. It is affecting your cellular biology, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Another one is called dirty electricity, and that's where we are actually on a Y grid system in America, in the US. You can look that up if you want to learn more, versus like the G system like in Europe. But the Y system, they put out the power through power lines, and they send it out to the homes and businesses. And ideally, whatever's not used would come back to the power station and make another lap, kind of make a circuit there. However, they built the system just the way they built it. There's not enough neutral wire to get all the power back. So a lot of our power goes actually into the ground, believe it or not. So, and then just like water, electricity is going to take the path of least resistance. So it's going to end up going through the ground. And if your home happens to be in a way, it can be going into your home and some of the piping, especially obviously metal is a great conductor. So for example, the pipes that bring water up from the city or from your well, that could be energized to, again, not high voltage, but small dirty electricity. The issue is that, again, you're not going to get shocked, like electrocuted like you would with a live wire off a telephone pole. The idea, though, is that you're exposed to this over time. That's the kind of dangerous part. If you're someone who's susceptible to it, which again we'll talk about later, it's the exposure over time that becomes a problem. Kind of like you can deal with pesticides, right, from fruit and vegetables, but if you have quite a decent amount and you accumulate that over 20, 30, 40, 50 years, it's this cumulative effect. That's what can really cause health problems, okay? So getting a little bit further down the line here. So items that really emit a lot of EMF besides, again, those power lines and etc. Cell phones, probably my number one to really talk about. And again, part two, we'll talk about mitigation from cell phones, but we just use it so often. It's like, I think there's many more powerful sources of EMF, like a microwave is way more powerful than a cell phone. The problem is what happens when we hold the cell phone here, right? We usually don't have a microwave, we're standing right at the door heating our food up, at least I hope you're not. But with cell phones, it's here, right? And a lot of people, it's like right here. Or even if you keep it on your body, you're physically touching it, which is going to emit EMF. And then you're also getting the radio frequencies from the towers, which is more EMF. So I believe the cell phone is probably the single biggest source because of its proximity. If you look at studies on this, it's the proximity to the body, not so much the source and, and if it's powerful or not powerful, it's how close it is to you. So that's a big one. Of course, personal computers, because they're wired with all kinds of stuff, TVs, a microwave, as I mentioned earlier, And then electrical circuits, mentioned that before. 5G towers is really big. The 5G, is basically a higher energy density than the 4G was, the previous generation of cell phone communication. So I guess 5G is much more powerful, but they're shorter as far as their wavelength and how they penetrate. So there's a lot more towers around. They need a lot more of these installations, especially in offices and schools. So that's what we have to be careful about. All right, so a couple little things here to give you more background. I did see a doctor, a neurologist, present on this, and she had nothing to do with natural health. She was just really concerned that EMF was such a problem, such an epidemic that's just kind of silent out there. But she was saying there's so many health problems that are happening and going to happen with EMF that she said it'd be even unethical to study it because there's enough data to show how damaging it is to the body. But she's like, hey, we can't even commission studies because it would be unethical to put people and expose them to this. So they're trying to do it with cell cultures and other lines and things. And sure enough, I did find a study over in Europe there where they did, they looked at a wound, and they looked at an artificial wound in the lab. And basically, when they exposed it to EMF, there was almost no repair of that wound at all. And these are just regular cells like you and I are made of. So it's a little scary. And I did read that study. It was actually well designed. It's small, but well designed. So we're going to see more and more evidence like that come out. So I want you to be informed about this, okay? So some of the issues that it can have is some of the major ones. I'm sure it has wide ranging, but infertility risk, most likely going up. Cancer risk, definitely going up. Wound repair, as I mentioned. And remember, not just wound repair from getting injured, but when you work out, you tear muscle tissue down. If you expose a lot of EMF, you may not get that recovery. Sleep is huge because without really good sleep, you can't fix any of the other problems in your body, which is all the other items I mentioned to you. Mental health, there are some people that are showing that the EMF is exacerbating mental health issues like different psychoses like anxiety, depression, bipolar. And then neurological conditions like ADD, ADHD, those types of things, autism spectrum disorder, things like that are most likely exacerbated, may not be causal, but exacerbated by EMF. So some symptoms that we could be looking at, again, this is going to sound very generic. It may cover a lot of different things. I deal with natural health, holistic health with almost any chronic condition you've heard of. So this may not immediately click with you, but some of the things people are reporting, remember, affects everybody differently, is sleeplessness, restlessness, just not feeling yourself, kind of anxious all the time, moody. If you have a change in your health without anything else changing, like job or social or those types of things, and just you notice it over the last several years, especially as our grid has been built up. You might consider looking into EMF there. Unexpected weight gain, lack of energy, again, poor recovery from workouts, and being susceptible to illnesses, just getting more colds and flus more frequently. Those are some of the kind of the symptoms or some of the attributes you might consider with EMF exposure, okay? So I have a lot more to say on this. It's such a huge topic. I'm trying to keep it brief as I can. So stay tuned for part 2 here in a little bit, and we'll get you some more information on what you can do about it. All right, talk soon.